Escalation clauses, a topic again now that we have so many multiple offers occurring. It's tough right now with buyers because so many of us are unfortunately, if there's 10 offers on a property, you have 1/10 of a chance of getting paid on the effort that you make, and it's a tough slog. So one of the things that Maria actually realized is that this escalation clause topic is afoot again, and it's important for us to understand escalation clauses for either side that we're on. So whether you're working with a seller or a buyer, you really have to have a lot of comfort with the subject and know how to advise people on how to navigate them. Now, I will tell you, if I had my way, the concept would be actually not legal, but in that it is legal, we have to sort of understand it now. Okay, so this is an article that I found, and this is exactly the question that concerns me about the concept. This article I have on the Market Center sites for both Westfield and Summit in the links section on the office site. I put this article up there in case anyone ever wants to consult it. But basically, this is exactly the issue as far as I'm concerned with the concept of escalation clause, because in order for an escalation clause to work, and let's who can explain what an escalation clause is? Can somebody jump in here and offer an explanation for what it is?
I could.
Who can?
Lucy.
Yeah. Oh, Lucy, go ahead.
So it's got two aspects. To me, an escalation clause is if my buyers go in on a bid and we put in a clause in the contract that says something along the lines of, we'll go $5,000 over the best bid.
Right. And so what it means is, without even having to think or make any kind of a self-examination about what you think a home is worth, you're able to become the best offer in most cases without having to do any kind of exercise about comparables or what the house actually means to you. And in fact, in this article, it just says, here's how it works. Two bidders are bidding on a house. One bidder offers $600,000 and the second one offers $550 with a $2,000 escalation clause. The second buyer is then told she won the bidding at $602. So it's a way to use the information in another contract to prevail in a multiple offer scenario. I have a fundamental ethical problem with that. I feel like that real estate contracts, offers to purchase, which is really what they are ought to be confidential. And I think if a broker uses, even though that person is not his client necessarily, and of course there's so many permutations of this that it's unbelievable, because if you have dual agency, it becomes another question altogether. And I fundamentally feel personally that the use of information in a real estate contract to benefit one client over another is unethical. They are legal, and many times we've inquired, and it keeps coming back with the Real Estate Commission and with the Board of Realtors that they're legal. I wish they weren't, but as I say, in that they are legal, and we are working for our clients at the end of the day. If our clients indicate that they either would like to accept them as sellers or use them as a buyer, we must be in a position to be able to act on that legal request that we're getting from our clients. Now, here's why I don't like them for that reason, the ethical reason. I don't like them for other reasons as well. I feel like if you're going to be using information from another contract to come up with a price for your own contract, you then mustn't be interpreting the other contract properly. For instance, what if the best contract that otherwise would have prevailed, what if it happens to have a concession included in the language of the contract? How do you determine then what price to use?
I fundamentally feel like a contract, you know, one of the components of a contract must be that it have consideration in it, and I feel like that the contract really ought to stand on its own and not depend on the work of someone else, or the decisions of somebody else on what a property ought to be worth. The other challenge I have is that, and this is something that you know, what we feel philosophically doesn't matter so much when we're talking to our buyers. If they would like to get involved with a escalation clause in their own contract, that's really their affair. If I'm working with a seller, I will say to them that I do fundamentally believe that it is a harmful thing for a seller to use, and the reason that I feel that it's harmful is that I can pretty much assure them that they'll wind up getting less money if they allow an escalation clause. And the reason that I believe that is that if a person said that he would offer $550,000 for a house, but would go up to say $700,000 using an escalation clause, but it only winds up going up to 605 because the next best competitor was just 600. This is a person that basically has said they would have been comfortable going to 700,000, yet they're going to get the house for less money because of the escalation clause. Usually the person who's using an escalation clause has to have the house. They're adamant that they must prevail in the multiple offer. And so what they're doing is finding a way to prevail while paying less than they would have otherwise paid. So I think they're harmful to sellers actually when you would think that the contrary is true. I'm pretty strongly advising sellers when I'm working with sellers to not use an escalation clause. Now, anybody have any questions about anything?
I do, Howard. It's Cheryl. And the question I have is, how do you know that if you're on the buy side and you're putting a bid in and you use an escalation clause, how do you know what was received? Is it ever shown to you because of the escalation clause? Or could they could put, have somebody write up an offer and you get stuck with bumping it up higher than you would have?
Right. Well, here is, okay, so hopefully I don't risk another. Can you guys see that? Yes. Okay. So here's sort of and I put up, so I put up a link with the article discussing the ethics of an escalation clause. That's on both office, under links on both offices' websites. And then in files called multiple offers under documents in both offices, I put this escalation clause example, which you can use if you want. You'll see, Cheryl, to answer your question in the bottom here, that it calls for some kind of evidence to be attached. So, you know, you could use a blacked out contract, I guess, to put people's names out. This is part of the reason I think they're unethical, because of this whole sharing of information required to make this work. That's that. Again, I don't love it, but this is how it would work. And you know, it basically would allow you to enter in here all the information required to drive this thing. You know, some of these clauses do not have this feature where there's proof required. I mean, again, you know, it's to me not a great way to be doing business. You know, real estate transactions are very fragile things, and I think when you introduce some additional complexity and muted information, and the source of the information is muted, I think it's asking for trouble, personally. Obviously, it does go on. People use them, and transactions close using them. But it's not my favorite.
Hey, Howard.
Yep.
Howard, this is Carrie. Hi.
Yeah.
I have a question. Which side actually mandates the allowance of an escalation clause, or is that not even like an issue? Like anyone can offer it if they want?
Well, the seller is the one who decides whether or not to allow it. If the seller won't entertain a contract which contains an escalation clause, then that's the end of that. It doesn't matter. The buyers can jump up and down all they want with escalation clauses, but if the seller has said he does not care to entertain the idea of one, then that's that.
Okay.
And Howard,
Okay,
thank you. This is Cheryl, and I said I think your point is well taken on the seller side, because it may be ill-advised for the sellers to do it, because there could be a buyer offer coming in where they'll waive appraisal, or they'll have other benefits for the sale to go through rather than just a price point.
Well, you know, that's another point. I mean, these contracts, there are a lot of terms in each contract, and so you could have a really terrible contract with a high price that you wouldn't otherwise take, but you know, with a wrong closing date, with unacceptable conditions, and yet that price could get used to drive the escalation clause in another contract, and you can't really assess the total value of an offer in just the price of the dollars offered. So yeah, that's another point there. There's another. This is something that Lucy uses. I hope you don't mind me mentioning.
It's fine. It's totally fine. Yeah.
That let's see if I can get this screen, and okay. So Lucy uses this a lot, and when she has multiple offers, and here again, you don't know if I don't know, Lucy, when you use these, do you feel like you're being paid attention to in them, or do you get concerned sometimes that they'll ignore it?
I am concerned they'll ignore it from the simple perspective that it hasn't been signed by the seller or their representative. So I'm always slightly skeptical, and I always share that with my buyers. The main reason I would counsel my buyers to use it, and mostly they do, is that I don't want their details shared with anybody.
Oh, yeah.
And we've done a huge amount of research on how our offer is going to be structured, just as you said. Why should somebody piggyback on our contract to beat us out? Similarly with a seller, I'll say to a seller, how do you feel about somebody coming in with an escalation clause? And invariably they'll say to me, oh no, they've got to put a stake in the ground, a specific dollar number, in which case I'll put that in my guidance email for multiple offers to say, you know, sellers will not entertain an escalation clause, and I'm doing it on their behalf.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, exactly. If you are in a multiple offer scenario, imagine your own information being used against you. It's kind of this is why I'm surprised they're even not barred from use, because the rules of agency cause us to advocate for our clients and be fiduciaries for them. And here we are as agents sharing information that could be directly being used against our own clients. It seems incredible. So Lucy will use this. Do you only use this, Lucy, if the agent is saying that she will entertain an escalation clause, or do you just use this in every offer that you make in multiple offers?
I use it regardless if the buyer is in agreement. I think once in about 21 years, I've had a situation where a buyer said, no, I definitely want to use an escalation clause. Once.
Yeah.
And that was so long ago, that was probably early 2000s. Most of the time, they don't want anybody getting their information. They don't want it shared, and they want to work on it with me to get the right number for them.
Right, exactly. And that's really the way it should be, I think. I have both these forms in the multiple offer file on both office websites. I was having terrible trouble getting into the office site this morning, so I guess I'm having a really technologically flawed day today, but they are both on there, so please feel free to use these documents. Now, anybody have
one other thing, Howard? You know how at the end of the contract you have the attachments such as seller's disclosure, FHA, whatever. I always put a little checkbox and put escalation clause attached to prevent use of, because it's just above additional contractual provisions. And I think it probably just makes other agents stop and think, perhaps I better not share this information. I always hope that the fact that it's your signature and it's there and it's blatantly on the contract, that they're not going to do that.
That's awesome. Yeah. Anything to make it stronger.
Yeah.
What questions have you guys got?
Howard, it's Hope. Are there in a multiple bid situation, is it possible to have multiple escalation clauses, and how does that fall out?
Yeah. Well, if you have two or more, then you just go up to the maximum on each one, the limit. So you just see which one has the higher limit on the upside. You know, most of them are worded. So in other words, you don't submit something that says, I'll go $5,000 over any offer that you get, because then you could get, $20 million offer, and all of a sudden you're paying $20 million for a $500,000 house. So they're limited to the upside. And if you get more than one, there is that. And that can happen. It probably has happened a bunch. You got to wonder how firm a buyer is going to be at his maximum price that maybe he didn't really envision that it would ever get up there, and so all of a sudden you're going to attorney review as a seller with somebody whose price is being dictated to him by something that he's hoping to see evidence of at some point. I don't know. It seems like a poor way to do business to me, that's for sure. And I try to advise clients as much as possible ahead of time, so that I'm not administering this thing that I really have trouble envisioning enforcing, really.
On the buy
Howard,
side, oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, Hope. You can finish if you want, and I'll go right after you.
On the so I see the way you lay it out to the seller as a disadvantage, but on the buy side, how do you address it with a buyer who wants to use an escalation clause?
Or, you will have people, there are articles, I showed you that one article, which again, I put the link under the link section on both office websites. That's a debate on the ethics of it. When you have a buyer, first of all, I'll never suggest it because I don't believe in it. But if I'm working with a buyer and they suggest it, there are articles out there saying they're the greatest thing, and I was going through articles to try to sort of look for material to discuss today. And, there are articles out there that exist where the author is writing, you're probably not working with the right realtor if they're not having you use an escalation clause when you buy property. So there is another side to it. But if a buyer suggests it to me, I will discuss, again, if they're suggesting it to you, they probably are not going to be terribly caught up in the ethics feature of it. They're looking to do something for their own advantage. But again, my advice to a buyer would be I will help you. Let's look at the comps. Let's examine the marketplace, and hopefully you're making an offer on this house today because you've had enough of an education going around looking at houses with me, and you understand the value out there on a relative basis, and you say you want this house. And if you're telling me you want to use an escalation clause, it certainly sounds like you definitely would like to prevail. Let's figure out what price you would be most comfortable giving yourself the best possible chance to buy the house. Many times in multiple offer situations, I tell people, if I'm very comfortable with the marketplace and the history, now is a little bit crazy to have a lot of comfort, but as comfortable as you can be on the marketplace, I try to give people an idea of how likely I think, in other words, if there's 11 offers on the house, I feel like if you go 20,000 above asking, you have about a 10% chance of getting the house. If you go 110,000 over asking, I feel like you have an 80%. I try to give them an idea like that, and I would try to guide them away from the idea of using an escalation clause as a tool to replace the tool that they should be using, which is looking at the comps, understanding the marketplace, and making an assessment for their personal judgment of the value of this property to them. I would ask them to be clear with themselves on how comfortable they would be winding up with a price that they didn't choose themselves. In other words, if this comes back and you've paid $720 on this $550,000 house, is that something you're going to be comfortable sticking with, night after night while you're waiting for the closing? Are you going to wake up at some point in the middle of the night and scream out that you're, feeling under pressure and burdened by this? Let's figure out the price that makes sense for you, and let's put that price in the contract. If they insist on it, just as Lucy said, you will find people that have their minds set on using them, and that's, the position we're in is if they make a legal request of us, we must obey it. So we use them then. That's why we're having this conversation. And that's why I'm making these documents available.
Howard, on the seller side, if your seller says that they are fine.
I can't hear you now.
Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. If the seller says that they'll entertain escalation clauses, they're still not bound to accept any highest number offer if the terms of another are better, though, correct?
Oh yeah, if they say they'll accept escalation clauses, they don't have to choose one of the offers that comes in with an escalation clause. They can choose any offer they like.
And they don't then have to justify it to the person that put the escalation clause in, do they? Like The escalation
No.
person says, no, well, I must have had the highest offer, and you can just say yes, but your terms weren't as good, and you can be done.
Yeah, I mean, there's a risk in any process. So, you know, I will say, you know, when you have situations where you decide to take an offer with a smaller dollar amount than another offer for whatever reason, you better have a good reason to do it. And if you don't, you better pray that you don't get caught up in some sort of accusation having to do with you know, racism or bias, because maybe that's another reason I hate the idea of an escalation clause. You put yourself in a position where you could be second guessed for choosing one contract over another. But you know, that's a risk that you take.
Okay.
This is Danming. I have a question, actually two questions. Say in a multiple bid situation, one offer is comes with escalation clause. Does the listing agent have a duty to broadcast this to all other offers? That's the number one. No,
there's no duty. There's no duty to broadcast it necessarily. You can. Maybe your seller would direct you to tell everyone that you're accepting escalation clauses in order to encourage them.
Gotcha.
So, but you don't have to. But on the other hand, if you're asked by an agent if you're accepting escalation clauses, I'm pretty sure most agents, I believe, when they're in multiple offer scenarios, will ask the agent whether or not they're going to accept escalation clauses. You should. I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't. If you're in multiple offer situation, you're working with a buyer, you owe it to your client to educate yourself about whether or not escalation clauses will be considered.
Mm-hmm. A second question is, say the second best offer is not, it comes without escalation clause and it lost to an offer with escalation clause. So the second best offer will be submitted to the winner as evidence. In this case, does listing agent need to notify the second best buyer's agent their offer contracts being used as in this submission?
There's no rule that I'm aware of to notify an agent that, and which is why, you know, Lucy's form, I don't even know why I call it Lucy's form. I don't think Lucy actually created it, but I know Lucy uses it. In fact, I think probably the first time I ever saw one was if Lucy had produced it. But in any case, if you use a form like that, you can't be sure that behind the scenes it's not being, your offer still has not become the driver for the multiple offer process. Yeah, I hate saying that because what I'm basically saying is that there are dishonest agents in the world. I guess there's bad cops, so there's bad agents too out there. None at Keller Williams, of course, but so yeah, you know, if you submit that form, I must say I think you do stand a good chance of having your information be kept private as you request. I just don't know if it's 100%.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. So Maria Beecham wrote here, is it legal to write X amount above the highest bid in your escalation clause, or must the clause give a definite end price? Well, it's going to, it's the clause, when you fill it out, we'll ask you how much above the other offer you want to go, and then it will have an upper limit as well in your escalation clause. So any other questions from anybody? Okay. Anybody have any comments about escalation clauses, or are we all on the same page?
Thank you for the information. It's very helpful, especially in this
Good.
marketplace of multiple bids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you, Howard. Howard, this is Evgenia. I thank you for clarifying the company policy on this, because me personally, in today's situation, I did feel there were several times when I did feel that putting an escalation clause and putting the cap on the escalation clause would get my clients the desired house. And I've well, that was my personal opinion, so I'll respect the opinion of the office. So thank you for sharing. It wasn't really clear for me from the point of view that you described. I might not agree, especially in today's situation. I think that when I am protecting my buyers, I don't want them to overpay. Like, I don't know. I just feel I have a very different and very strong feeling about it, especially in today's market. But I will respect the company policy.
Well, the company policy isn't, they're a tool that exists, and my personal feeling is I don't like them. But everybody who's a real estate agent has a duty to do his best job protecting his client, whether they're selling a house or buying a house. We are all duty bound to do the best we can to protect their interests at all times. And some of us are going to do that using different tools and different methods that we personally believe are going to help our clients out the best. I believe I'm helping my clients out the best when I educate them about the marketplace, and I can give them the comfort and confidence to write an actual dollar price down on their contract. That's my personal feeling. That's how I personally get to a place where I feel like I'm doing the best job I can for my buyers. And you're perfectly free and able to use other tools to get your clients the results that they're after. And that's fine, as long as in your heart, you know that you are doing your best for your clients.
Well, and that's why I mentioned it, because I did truly feel that in one of the cases, putting escalation, well, actually in two cases, putting escalation clause will serve the best to my clients, but I didn't know like how to properly, present it, and I didn't use it. And at one case I used it, and we lost to somebody else. And I still, until today, I do not understand it, because we were already in attorney review, and it was such a painful experience for us. And then I saw that they closed for less than we offered, and it was just, sometimes you don't know.
Right.
You know.
Right. Yeah. I just feel like it's better business to have actual prices, and that's my personal feeling across the board. So you know what you're dealing with then. I see Maria's typed in a question again. You always have an upper limit on the escalation clause, so you're not paying $5 million for a $500,000 house.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
okay.
All right. Anybody else have any questions or thoughts or comments?
No, it
All
was very
good?
helpful. Thank you.
All righty, you guys. Thanks for tuning in, and good luck everyone out there. Use those forms and keep doing great jobs for your clients. I appreciate it very much.
Thanks, Howard.
Thanks, Howard.
Okay, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.